Wow, you still don't think this is about you? You still don't think this is about you? Look what you have to go through just to get a little bit of pure water, just to get a little bit of that, you know what I'm saying, that that purified drop, man. Look at all the hijacks you gotta dodge, man. Look at all the distractions just to get the pure water. Man, when I say pure water, man, I'm speaking Thai Battle, the Battle family. Chris Battle, CJ Battle, the Battle family. Man, you know what I'm saying? when the wave, when it's wavy, it's wavy. You know what I'm saying? The fam was, I believe at, some type of garage sale or something, man. And, you know, the sister walked in, she saw this drop, man. She saw the actual book. The actual book. Just staring at her. Man, let's see. The actual joint, this is the actual picture that my sister sent me, man. And, this is the actual book she saw. Noah Webster, 1828. So this ain't no mythological dictionary. The sister just copped this joint. And she, it's the same 1828 dictionary we've been talking about, man. We're talking about after 1776. We're talking about after their declaration of independence from melanated royalty in Europe. They're getting their independence, and now it's what? It's their manifest destiny. They have their doctrine of their Khrist-yan Discovery, converted die, Papal bull. Yeah, it's all about the bull, man. It's all about this bull shenanigan, man. And who are you? Native of America. Original copper-colored race. Found here. Just found here. Not some of you. If it was just a few of you so-called Negroes found here, I don't think you would be the definition of American. I'm just saying. If we were just talking about a few of you, you know what I'm saying? I don't think you would be the definition. This is the actual, screenshot, man. Love to my family, man. When it's wavy, baby. So, you know what I'm saying? My sister's holding up the book. They got it highlighted. They got the OG 1828 dictionary. Open it up and see, man, is this play? And they're looking at it, and it says what it's been saying. That so many of these Negroes were just found here recently in this so-called America, that the actual definition of an American is the Native of America originally applied to the Aboriginals, or copper-colored races found here by the European, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. Patriotism? Love? Where's the love, man? When the actual title, the actual definition of this land, the actual face of this land, oh man, the actual emblem of America is you, my sister, is you, my brother. Is the copper color Negro found here. Because sometimes you hear people say, man, well, you know, I'm sure there was a few black Indians, but most of y'all from Africa, right? And we say, if little racist Tommy in the wife beater smoking a cigarette in Texas, little blonde-haired Tommy, little blue-eyed Tommy with a dirty, torn wife beater and torn up shoes is sitting there and sees your black ass and says, go back to Africa, nigger. How the fuck does racist Tommy have the same drop as the most conscious brother in the conscious community? How do they both know that you come from Africa? How does racist Tommy have the same level of scholarship as your conscious leader today? How do they both know you come from Africa? How do they have the same definition? How do they have the same origin? The same answer for you, the same education, the same indoctrination. And how come racist Tommy haven't dug up some basic facts? That the actual definition of America, of an American, is a native of America, originally applied to the Aboriginal or copper color races. But nah, man. They tripping. I mean, you know what I'm saying? They're just saying that. I mean, you came from Africa, then you migrated over there, but, you know, before that, who was there? Before the melanated brother and sister was here on this land here in South America, Central and North America, if they all migrated from one area, all the melanin of the entire flat plane comes from one area, you're saying that all this is not connected, that Earth is not one body. And if Earth is one body, then it's the same connection. We're talking one organism, one body. And you might be indigenous. Your genes might be specifically constructed for a certain part of the body. And maybe they just found these copper colored Negroes right here in this part of the earth body. Not that it's better than this or better than that, but for some reason, everybody wants to be here. For some reason, they're digging up gold left and right everywhere. For some reason, Egypt is here, coming out the Grand Canyon. For some reason, we're sandwiched between Atlantis and Lemuria. That there's portals and cities of gold and gates opening up through other planes of existence, past the ice barriers, all over here. That Columbus is saying that the Orinoco River is connected to the terrestrial paradise. Here. And the definition of an American on this land, this particular part of the body, is the copper-colored Negro. Found here. Man, love to the Battle family for digging up this drop, man. We just talking the copper color. You know what it is and you know what it ain't. You know Lauren Hill. You know old Grandma Penny. And you know who is now in proxy of you. Now, this is not to, you know what I'm saying, you know what I mean, discredit, you know, nothing. But this is when we deal with the uppercuts, you know what I'm saying, when this shit comes close to home and you right here and you fighting in close, it is nothing but body blows and uppercuts, man. No time for play. Take down. So anybody that gets their feelings hurt in the midst of this, man, man, because we're coming in shalom. We're coming in, you know what I'm saying, the energy to devour. All of this authority of their chaos, man. And it's chaos to think that this is the image of what's always been here. And not this. The melanated sister. The melanated sister. The melanated sister. Now, how do you go? Bear with me now. This is an Emblem of America. Now, this is in London, all right? This particular painting is now in London. A lot of our stuff from here is now over there. Rock with me. Title, An Emblem of America, London, published the 1st of February, 1801. So in 1801, rock with me. In 1801, the definition of an American was this image. How do you know? Because in 1828, hold up. In 1828, just like you just saw, the real thing. 1828, the definition of American is the copper color races found here, the tribes. So rock with me. 1801. 1801, copper color race. 1828. So you're look how recent your takedown is, so-called Negro. Just meditate on this, because they put due meditation into your takedown. Meditate with me. You can't meditate if you're spinning on a ball. You got to be firm, fixed, and immovable for 1 second. In 1801, my sisters, my brothers, this is your image of the Emblem of America. British Museum, right? They're calling it an allegorical figure. So could this be a Queen Sheba, a Queen Khalifa? Now they're calling it a myth. We're all mythology now. So because this is an emblem of America, they have to now preface it with, oh, it's an illusion. It's an allegory. It's not real. This is not their land. Because right after that, here's your new emblem of America. Look at this. So how do you go? How are you going from this? How are you coming here? Now look at your little Indian asses. Now look at the so-called Negro. Now look at the emblem of America. And what did the definition say? A native of America applied originally to the copper color races found here by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. So now, this is possible. You know what I mean? So I would love to get all the original. I mean, of course, they don't know the original, you know what I'm saying, time this was painted. This is all the published dates. So this had to be even before 1801, because this says 1798. And you know it didn't go from here to here, right? Look around. So this must have been, actually painted well before 1801. So you have, now they're calling this an allegorical figure. Standing to the left, head tilted to the right. Look at her. She's like, damn, shit's about to change. Remember they call Prester John the last noble image of the Negro? Now look at this queen. She's like, things are about to change, man. What's about to change? You about to hear it, man. You about to hear it out of the proxy's mouth. And that's just talking true, because he's in proxy of me or you, you know what I'm saying? He's standing in proxy of the so-called Negro being the actual emblem of America. You don't see any proxy. This is the copper color race. We're only talking copper color pennies. Museums are, of course, the main supports for the albino's false history. In this case, the animal skin is called a leopard skin to imply that the figure is African or somehow associated with Africa. Actually, the headdress suggests one of the Black California tribes. The Caliph is this Khalifa, Queen Khalifa. If we're just talking Black California, and if she's the emblem of California, and if she's the emblem of America, you might be looking at Khalifa, Sheba, Caliph, Black, which is just a title. And the spotted animal skin could be the ocelot, California bobcat, or California lynx. And you go from here to this being the emblem of America. And this is what we have today, right? And this is how you're treated today, right? This is how they look at you. They, oh, little Indian. They didn't look at her that way. But now they're conquered. Now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. So even in 1828, so-called Negro, because I can only so-call you Negro when the definition of Ame'rican is you, the copper color race. All I can do is say you're so-called Negro, because that's just an adjective. That's just implying you have some degree of melanin, but all of these tribes here did, right? I mean, check out the Inca nobles. This is a very rare painting. These are the Dons, man. Don Fran Diero, Don. So this is an Inca ruler, his two sons, it says. Portrait of the Inca nobleman and his sons painted by native Andean painter Andres Sanchez Galic. The Inca are depicted wearing Spanish clothing, but with Inca gold adornments, and are captioned with Spanish names, prefixed by Don, meaning Lord or gentleman. It is the oldest known signed and dated painting from South America. This is the oldest known signed and dated painting from South America, my people. So who are the Inca? Who are the Inca? These are the Inca nobles. I've heard different, suggestions. Some say this was, part of the Moor on Moor war. Some say they were hijacked. Some say they got hijacked. I mean, I don't know. But this is the oldest known signed and dated painting from South America. And it is said to have been commissioned by a colonial official as a gift to the King of Spain. Museo Nacional de Prado, Madrid. Don't this just look like Jerome or Tommy or Nuck? You know what I'm saying? Roscoe, Baby Turtle, you know what I mean? All the homies. Young Chico. Man, don't this just look like the homies on the block? This is the oldest known signed and dated painting from South America. Do they say they come from Africa? Or are they the definition of the American? Are they the definition of the American? Are they the definition of the American? Is your melanin specific to one area of the earth body? Or does the entire earth body have melanin? And did they find you in a region that's not too hot, not too cold, and surrounded by gold? And did you now fit their mythos, or what they're calling their allegory? An allegorical figure. Now you're a mythos. Now you're an allegory. Look at her. She's surrounded by cities of gold. Copper color race found here. Clearly protected by the Creator, since we know based on navigation that it's 4 times harder to come here and 4 times easier to go there, dealing with the Gulf Stream. You don't even have to paddle a boat to get to Europe or Africa from South America or the Caribbean, going up the Gulf Stream from Mexico. You don't have to paddle a boat, man. You just float. Coming back is a different story. So is it economical that they just found you over there and traveled a direction where it's 4 times, 3 or 4 times harder and takes 3 or 4 times longer just to get here? Or did they just find you here? And is that why the definition of American is the originals? Originals don't sound like you just came from Africa. It sounds like you always been here. It sounds like you've been here since before the days of Peleg, when the earth was divided. That if you was in Louisiana before the earth was divided, you was in Louisiana then, and you in Louisiana now. And the Aboriginals of Australia don't say they come from Africa. They say they come from Australia. Solomon Islands say they come from there. They are original to the places that they are found in because they're part of that particular earth body. Melanated family. Give your people some props and know that your people come from everywhere, not just Africa. See, when a white man tells you to go to Africa, little Tommy, racist Tommy tells you to go to Africa, what happens to America? That means it belongs to him. Now, racist Tommy is smart enough to know that when he tells your black ass to go to Africa, he's saying, get the fuck out of my country. This shit belongs to me now. I am a descendant of Europeans born in America. Descendants? Oh, yeah, we're going to get to this La Minche. And we're going to get to this video, man. Love to Herm P. About to drop this incredible, video, man. But, I always got to, preface this stuff, man, because sometimes you just got to, have some padding. Gotta have some padding, man. We bring up this because this guy's about to bring up this. The Papal Bull. Now he's going to go to the 1453 and all the other ones that follow him. We're talking about the Roman Pontifex. We're talking about the Caetera, came to serve as the basis and justification for the Doctrine of Discovery. Man, we're just talking Doctrine of Discovery or Christian discovery. Global slave trade. Watch out for that global. And know that they found you here, so they took you from here to there. We're talking Pope Nicholas V issued the Papal Bull Dum Diversas on 18th of June, 1452, authorizing King Alfonso V of Portugal to reduce any Saracen, Muslim, pagan, or any other unbeliever to perpetual servitude. And every time, man, they bring up Saracen, we go right back to this crest that gives you all the drop on what a Saracen is and what it's not. And your face pops up when they call you, oh, the crest, a Saracen's head. And then they try to connect that to something of Arab, which we know, the Moor and Arabs, all of them are melanated. So, that's not a big deal. Except, of course, we're talking lost tribes of Israel identity, lost tribes of Israel red thread. And we're talking the Picts and the Rus. We're talking what they're calling a Saracen, people of promise, getting to the root of it all. Tribe up. And you see your Negro face. So now you have the image, right? When they say, reduce any Saracen, oh, Muslim. Man, let us find the truth. Told you that. Showed you in etymology how Muslim means people of promise. It does not refer to Islam. That was later. Now it became the one and the same thing. But you have the Mohammedans. You have different tribes. Muslim doesn't necessarily mean Islam. It does now. But Muslim back then meant people of a promise. People who believed in a promise. Like what? A promised land. A Saracen is you, man. A Saracen's head. You, Negro. So you see all these code words for you. Saracen. We're just talking dumb diverses and Doctrine of Discovery. We're just getting some foundation before we get into this video. Saracen. You, Negro. And pagan, oh, because you don't rock with their Zeus or Zeus or Jesus, Christo, and any enemies of their Zeus or Zeus or Christo, any enemies of Zeus, Jesus, Zeus, Zeus, Jesus, Hell Zeus, any enemies not helling Zeus, non-Christo, Christian means anointed of the Greeks, not anointed of you, Saracen. Your peace is not their peace, obviously, Saracen. Why, Saracen? Because they're reducing you. How are they doing it? Let's see. Now we're talking about it extended to the Catholic nations of Europe, dominion over discovered lands during the age of Christian discovery, along with sanctifying the seizure of non-Christian lands. So if you didn't rock with their Jesus or their Zeus, then they're coming for you, which means if they came to America, there is no Zeus here. So they considered it a non-Zeus land. So they came to convert you to Zeus. And if you weren't rocking Zeus, you might want to pay attention to the Paleo-Hebrew Los Lunas inscriptions giving you your 9 commandments and your creator, your great spirit above the barrier. Before Zeus came and said, come through me to get to your father. Before you had a hijack saying, come to me to get to your creator. Along with sanctifying the seizure of non-Christian lands. Now they're in America. Where's America? What's so special about America? Oh man, well, it's just the it's applied to the copper color race. It's applied to the Saracen. America, Saracen. America, copper color race. Papal bull. Come after the Saracen. Come after the Negro. Come after you, Negro. This is the document that puts you into slavery here on your own land. This is the document. This is your proof that you are currently a prisoner of war, breaking out of chains right now, waking up. It only takes 2 generations to wipe a whole nation clean, man. 2 generations. And I'm just saying, in 1801, this was an emblem of America. Before this, 1801. I'm saying in 1828, this is the definition of an American copper color race. Copper color penny. Copper color man, Saracen, right? Okay. It encouraged the enslavement of native, non-Christian, non-Zeus people in Africa and the New World. The Christian New World is their perspective. They see it as new. We weighing all in singular the premises with due meditation. We need to meditate on this, man. We can't talk about this enough. Never. Never, man. This is your documentation. Due meditation. They meditated on it. You need to have due meditation. To wake up in your own land after being knocked the fuck out. Getting up saying, oh shit, I'm from here. Oh shit, I've been invaded. Oh shit, I'm the Saracen. Me? What you just talking, lost tribes of Israel? Why did Kendrick Lamar say he's an Israelite? Why did Columbus bring a Hebrew interpreter to talk to you? Well, we weighing all singular the premises with due meditation. They thought about this shit. And noting that since we had formerly, by other letters of ours, granted among other things free and ample faculty to the aforesaid King Alfonso, to do what to the Negro? To do what to the Saracen? To do what to him? Invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all Saracens, Negroes, your prisoners of war. Subdue all Saracens and pagans whatsoever, and enemies, other enemies of Christ. Now you're Christians, which is, hey, you gotta tell these people, bravo. They come over here with it. They kill you. They say convert or die. They come to a non-Christian land, so there was no Zeus here. They bring you a Zeus. They put their image. It's all good now. Now you come through Zeus. Now you're waiting for this Christ, right? You ain't even waiting for your creator. You're waiting for Christ. Hijack 101. When they came over here, because you're enemies of Christ by nature. You're enemies of Zeus by nature. No powers before my power. Rule number 1. No idols. This is your situation. This is your reality. Idols. hijacked over and over by idols. You're making the decision to lower your electromagnetic field, to lower your integrity. You were enemies of Christ. You were shalom. You came to devour the authority of this chaos. Wheresoever place, and the kingdoms, they took your kingdoms. Negro, they're talking to you, the Saracen. We'll get to it. They took your kingdoms, your dukedoms, your principalities, your dominions, your possessions, and all movable and immovable goods, whatsoever held, whatever you had, man. They co-jacked you. They co-jacked you. They co-jacked. She looking like, oh, damn. I used to be the emblem of America. I am the copper color race found here by the European, but now my title is given to the descendants. Descendants. What do you mean, descendants? What do you mean, Saracen? Listen up. So they took your kingdoms, your dukedoms, principalities, dominions, possessions, and all movable and immovable goods whatsoever held and possessed by them, and to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery. Now you hear about slavery, but they found you here and they took this document to do it, and they called it the Doctrine of Discovery, Khrist-yan Discovery, and to apply and appropriate to himself, and to apply and appropriate to himself, and to apply and appropriate to himself and his successors, the kingdoms, dukedoms, counties, principalities, dominions, possessions, and goods. Successors, to apply and appropriate to himself and his successors. Yeah, that sounds familiar. But now applied to the successors or descendants. The successors of Europeans born in America. But now the title American is applied to the descendants of Europeans, the successors. When I say American, you don't think about the Saracen no more. You don't think about Hawa, the creator, no more. You just think about Christ, Jesus, Jesus, churches on top of mounds, hijacking the frequency of the trees, putting you in perpetual bondage, slavery, and to apply and appropriate to himself and his successors. Damn. Descendants. Successors. Descendants. Invaders of the Saracen, or the Negro, or the copper color race found here, or the American. The descendants appropriate to himself and his descendants, successors, the kingdoms, dukedoms, counties, principalities, dominions, possessions, and goods, and to convert. Now you're converts. They have Judaism, the study of Judah. They converted to you. Now you converted to Christ. Convert them to his and their use. They're using you, your energy. They're hijacking your frequency and profit. Oh boy, have they profited off of the black gold by having secured the said faculty, the said King Alfonso, or by his authority, the aforesaid Infante, justly and lawfully, they say. Whose law? We're about to read about their law. Their law has acquired and possessed and doth possess these islands, man. They islands, Indies, lands, harbors, and seas, and they do of right belong and pertain to the King Alfonso and his successors. This is a cold jack move, man. Man, if you don't know a jack move when you see one, this is the Papal Dumb Diversas 1452. If you don't know a jack move when you see one done on you, so-called Negro, I mean, we're just talking, our surnames, our royalty. They call us Saracen. And what's happening to the Saracen? He's getting jacked. His kingdoms, dukedoms, principalities, dominions, possessions, all movable and immovable goods, whatsoever held, possessed by him. And they're reduced now to perpetual bondage and forever. That means forever. That means forever, my people. We're just talking about the emblem of America. They call you a myth, an allegory. They say you come from another land because melanin just couldn't have sprouted up here. Right from the Mississippi, the cradle, right out of Mexico. She's like, damn, my people got it fucked up. I'm the emblem of America. Now this is your emblem of America. Copper color race found here, man. Inca nobles. I mean, you know, when you talk about this Inca list, you talk about all these Incas, where do you see the proxy? Look at these dark copper colored people. This is the American. And this, my people, is Charles. Oh, King Charles IV, House of Bourbon. He just looks like Trayvon, the homie Trey. Look at this picture. He just looked like the homie Trey. That's Carlos. Young C. This is King Charles. Do you get the picture, my people? This is a more on more war. And they're using a hijack to perpetuate these people. But when they declared their 1776, they were running from this face. This dark people there conquered them. They were trying to get a renaissance popping. And who was orchestrating it? Who's behind it today? Who's behind it today? Brother. This is King Charles IV. Oh, they even made Jesus. Hey, is this Joshua? Which Joshua? Which Joshua? Man, y'all get me started. This is Charles. These are the Incas. All the same melanin, right? But now he's cutting off and taking their title. He's hijacking them. See, he's next in line. He's hijacking Atahualpa. And where's Tupac? Tupac-Atek. Pahakotek. Pac-Atek. This is Tupac, man. This is Tupac. This is where Tupac Amaru, Tupac, man. Rest in power. This is the Tupac, you know what I'm saying? Connection, man. So, all right, man. All right. We're going to get it, man. We're just talking the copper color race found here. You already know what time it is, man. It's kind of crazy, man. When you Google copper color race, man, we got some drop popping up. We got some drop, man. So I take that, it's highly motivational that we could pop up when you look up copper color race. It means that we on our job, man, that we doing it. We are the Ame'rican, the descendant. Not the descendant of the European border America, but the original, the aboriginal, the original. So let's get it, man. Man, love to her and P. Fair use and they caboose, you already know. Her and P dropped this and said, man, there's a lot of babies floating around in that bath of water. I said, let's go, man. Let's go ahead and get it, man. So you're going to get some of this Doctrine Discovery. Man, peace to Shoe Swap Nation. All right. Y'all hit that up. Stephen Nocum. And you're going to get it from the proxy. All right. You're going to let the proxy break this down to you sometimes. That's what it is. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to let the proxy break it down, but you know who you are. You are the copper color race found here. They just found you. They just found you here. And when they found you here, this is what it was in the 1800s. That's why you are the definition. So don't let a couple centuries go by and you forgot who you are. And now you think all melanin must come from one area of the entire earth. Everything out of Africa theory benefits them. Then who gets the rest of the pie, right? Just think about it logically. And where do they find all this gold? California gold rush, California gold rush, California gold rush, Black California tribes. Cali means black. We need to wake up. We need to snap it back. We need to start choosing up. And it starts with, getting this pure water, man. So with that foundation, man, let's dig on this Doctrine of Discovery presentation. Stephen Newcomb. Let's go.
as nations and peoples.
Kishilamieng, mi ongundawakan, mi li ongundawakan, uli nipalinan, wanishi kishilamieng. I want to pay my respects to the ancestors of this land and to the Shuswap Nation and to the council members of the Shuswap Nation who may be here today, and also to pay my respects to the Thompson River University and to all the organizers of this event, and particularly want to reach out to Art Manuel for having initiated this event. And
love to the family, Albert Thompson, man, always dropping on them Thompson River, what they call Thompson River Indians, you know what I'm saying? I mean, so much drop, so much connecting to Prester John, connecting to these Thompsons, man. Love to the family, Albert, man. And again, you're getting it from the proxy, but you got foundation, and you know what the emblem of America look like. If it looked like that then, it looked like that now. Straight up, let go.
And talk to me about speaking here some time ago. I wanted to say that I was very glad to hear the previous speakers from today, and I hope that my talk will provide some of the information to fill in some of the gaps and provide a little bit different context for what we've been discussing here as the Doctrine of Discovery, or as I prefer to call it, the Doctrine of Christian Discovery. And what I'll be specifically speaking about today is what I call the idea system of domination and subordination. And as I go through my talk and I read from a few source materials and speak about a number of things, I think you'll understand why I refer to it in that manner. I wanted to do a little bit of a retrospective, however, and realized today that it's 20 years since I had a kind of epiphany, a moment of revelation where I understood. I thought in 1992, you know, next year will be the 500th anniversary of the Intercessory Papal Bull of 1493. And why don't we go to Pope?
He went to the Papal Bull 1493. We just read the 1452. So we're 40 years earlier with our, you know what I'm saying, particular document and recon here. So this is what we do. Let's go.
John Paul II and the Vatican, and call upon them to formally revoke that document that called for the subjugation of so-called barbarous nations. And so I had the good fortune to meet my friend and colleague and mentor Virgil Killstraight from the Oglala Lakota Nation, who is a ceremonial man. And we decided to go on a tour in different parts of the world to begin that campaign, and we did. And under Virgil's wing and guidance and so forth, with his connections, we were able to begin that work. And we made many trips to Italy, and I was at the Vatican in 2000. We went to other parts of the world, such as Australia, New Zealand, and he went to France. I went to England, and many different countries, and began to publicize that information. And I know that some people had begun publicizing that even before us. But it's amazing to look now and see that since the issue was brought forward to the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, and working with Tanya and Chief Warren Lyons, we were able to move it forward. And so it's really very prominent on the world stage, and it's wonderful to see this event organized with a specific focus on what's been called the Doctrine of Discovery. One of the things I'd like to mention is a quote from Francisco de Vitoria, and he made a statement. He said, "Sovereigns, if they had to trace their title to their rule back to its origin, they could not keep anything they discovered." And of course, discovered is always in quotation marks. But one of the key points in doing the research that I've done over such a long period of time is to look at the English language, this colonizer's language that we're operating within today, and to look deeper into that language and to understand some of the meanings that are not obvious immediately, but when we dig a little bit deeper, we begin to see those meanings and to awaken to a different dimension. And I'll just give you an example. The word mortgage, it's actually two words fused together. The first is mort, which is death, and gauge, which is grip. And so if we say, I have to pay my death grip this month, but I don't know where I'm going to get the money, it puts it into a whole different context. And there are a number of words like that. For example, the word America is actually Ame and Rika. Ame is a command, love, and Rika is riches and wealth. So it's a command to love riches and wealth. And so the American dream is the dream of riches and wealth. And these are just a couple of examples.
See, when a proxy, you know what I'm saying, gets a little big and they put the proxy on it, and always it's going to get a lot of hijack with a little bit of drop. Sometimes a lot of drop with a little bit of hijack. But as you already know, I mean, even if he breaks it down like that, I mean, why can't it just be referring to the land of love and wealth? Why does it have to be, oh, you love riches and wealth? Why can't it be love, riches, wealth? Why can't it be the promised land of riches and love and wealth? I mean, however you break it down is an interpretation. But the way he just broke it down as if it was oh man, this must mean greed. America must mean greed. And when you look at him, you know, he looks, you know, very, very similar to any other Caucasian coming out of, you know, any part of Europe, right? But has these flags in the back, and he has, you know what I'm saying, a little drop on some, you know, so-called native shit. And a lot of it's just mixed up, hijacked, Canaanite bullshit, all kind of, it's just mixed up bullshit. And they're fronting as if they were here 1,000 years, 2,000 years. You're going to hear them say, oh yeah, our ancestors from 2,000 years, and you just got the drop. You just got the drop on what's really here. You just got the drop on what's really going on. The cause, what's really here in Peru, what's really going on. Now we're not talking, see, this is what he's relating to. This is what they're calling the Mongol connection, even though we know even that's hijacked. All these, this is a golden Inca female figure. Connected to the Egypt, right? I can see these golden idols. Machu Picchu, 15th century Inca estate, Cuzco. The more you look, the more you're just going to find you. Pedro Alvarez Cabral, slightly whitenized picture of American Bank. Man, you're just going to find you. Now this gets interesting, right? Now this is a general of the Portuguese colony. A general of the Portuguese colony. And yes, he looks like the Charles picture, right? Dark Portuguese, dark Spaniards. This is the real picture. 19th century Brazilian. So we're talking 1800s. Again, the definition of America. This is mama. This looks very similar to my mother. Very similar. So, and my mama, you know what I'm saying? Draped in gold, draped in gold, draped in gold in South America in the 1800s. The definition of an American is these copper colored tribes that are found here. And we're just talking mama. All right, so let's keep all that in mind, man. When we talk with the proxy, he's saying that he's relating to mama. Is he relating to mama? You be the judge. But let's go.
Examples of how when you begin to break English words apart and you realize that some 60% of English is actually originating in the Latin language, which is the language of the Roman Empire, then you can see the ways in which it can be easily manipulated for purposes of domination and control. Today, Louise did such a marvelous job of taking you through a tremendous amount of the history over the last several decades and understanding what's been happening in what's often called the law, but I prefer to put 2 additional letters on the word the, which is the letters IR, making it their law, and making sure that we make that distinguishment, that it's their law, the colonizers' law that they brought from afar. And but she did a tremendous job, as you heard, going through a lot of the minutiae of the cases and the way in which legal decisions are manipulated. And of course, you heard Walter Echo Hawk and you heard Robert Miller speak earlier on some of the origins of Johnson versus McIntosh. I think Walter did a terrific job of explaining the fraud that was involved in that case. And of course, Bob Miller did a tremendous job on breaking the Doctrine of Discovery down into what he sees as 10 elements in there. What I would add to that in terms of what he calls the right of discovery, I would call it the right of Christian discovery, because that's really how it was formulated in its origin. And also that Jeanette Armstrong has done such a wonderful job of illustrating what the traditional law system or the code of traditional behavior is, beginning with the origin stories. And the theme of my talk today, as you may see in the program, is the original free and independent existence of our nations and peoples. And what I mean by that is the original free and independent existence of our nations and peoples, meaning free and independent of that domination or that claim of a right of domination that was brought here so many centuries ago to this region of the world. And for thousands of years, our nations and peoples lived completely free of any of those assertions of claimed authority. So then what is the basis of their assertion of claimed authority? Well, there's an amazing book published in 1938, and it's called Creation of Rights of Sovereignty Through Symbolic Acts. Creation of Rights of Sovereignty Through Symbolic Acts.
Let's get that PDF, sticky finger.
So what they're claiming in that book, and they illustrate with the countries of Spain and Portugal, Holland, Sweden, the British, the United Kingdom, as it's called today, the English colonization, and also Russia, that there were these different acts of possession that Bob Miller illustrated earlier. And they claimed that on the basis of these different rituals, that they were creating sovereignty. So in a sense, they're doing a magical ritual in their minds, and by throwing some dirt around or sprinkling some water, tearing up some grass, breaking a branch, waving a sword in the air, by these various tricks, as one participant in those ceremonies called it, along with a notary public who would make sure that there was a document with an official seal on it that could be filed with a particular, with the crown, and the planting of the flags, or what's called the royal standards, and the cross and so forth, that they've actually, voila, created sovereignty. And so what I call that is superstitious nonsense, and because that's precisely what it is. And the idea of sovereignty is actually something coined by Jean Baudin in 1577, and the official definition of that goes with it, going back to French absolutism, is supreme power over citizens and subjects unrestrained by the law, meaning that the claim of supreme power is not restrained by any law, but all of the citizens and subjects are supposedly under the domination or the dominion of that sovereign supreme authority. When you break the word sovereign apart, it's S-O-V-E-R, which is sover, which means super or above, and reign, which means to rule. So it's to rule from above, which is the theme of domination.
And it's also the theme of the Creator, which is domination. You have a dominant frequency, a frequency in which you're shaped, and you are formed, and you are molded, and you are framed in. So yes, you are ruled by an above frequency from above the barrier that you are the signature of. But, the proxy can only see it as another type of threatening, type of situation. You know what I mean? Same as America. It must mean greed. Sovereignty must mean chaos when we're talking a higher degree of sovereignty. But let's go.
And so they're claiming that they have a right of supreme power over our nations and peoples, over our lands and territories, and they call that the assumption of sovereignty in the Canadian case law, at least to the extent that I've read that. And of course, they don't even call it sovereignty, they call it an assumption of sovereignty, which is exactly what it is. And it's simply presuming something into existence. So in a sense, it's a form of mind control. When we actually interpret ourselves into their framework, then we are willingly, or I should say not necessarily willingly, but we are allowing ourselves to be pulled into that interpretive framework to our detriment. And by ignoring our original free and independent existence and the illegitimacy of their claims of a supreme power over our traditional territories, which are still existing at this time and will forever exist. Because you cannot take thousands and thousands of years of cultural and spiritual interaction with our lands and territories, with all the relations and relatives, all forms of life within those ecological systems and the waterways there, and have that simply disappear because of these rituals, superstitious rituals that they engaged in. And it's my contention that we need to go to those places where they conducted those rituals, and we need to reaffirm our traditional and spiritual connection with all of our traditional territories. And the way in which we are able to conduct ourselves, despite all the efforts to destroy our languages, cultures, and traditions, is still in keeping with the original instructions given to us by the Creator. Virgil tells the creation story from the perspective of the Oglala Lakota people, and he always points out that we originate in spirit. And all the forms of creation, all the ways in which creation manifested itself on this beautiful planet, there are laws that go with that. And in their tradition, they speak of those as the 7 laws that lead to the Wo Lakota, which is the way of life of peace and friendship, of peace and of allies. And those 7 laws are something along the lines of to honor and respect, to have compassion and pity, sharing and caring, or to carry the welfare of the people in our hearts, bravery and courage, humbleness and humility, seeking wisdom and seeking understanding, and bravery and courage. And when all of these are in their totality lived as a way of life, with the rules that are built into the kinship rules that are built into the language, it leads to a life of peace and friendship, and also to the ecological abundance of life, as Jeanette mentioned. And that's really that underlying code that she's pointing out there, because our languages are extremely old, and our ways and our laws are extremely evolved over such a long period of time that they have those areas of knowledge and wisdom in them that provide a model for the world community at this time. And they form an alternative to the domination, subordination system that's killing the planet through the tar sands and through all the various things that we could illustrate in terms of the ways that peoples and forms of life are being destroyed through genetic modification, through all of the various toxins that have been flooded into the planet, and because it's a way of life built on insanity. And so the underlying code is something that has been well illustrated in a number of documents. For example, and by that underlying code, I'm talking about the code of domination and subordination. It gradually dawned on me as I read more and more of the literature and the history that everywhere I was looking, I was seeing the words submission or subjugation or subdue or conquer, conquest, conqueror, and so forth. And gradually it formed in my mind that these were synonyms for the exact same thing. And there was a writer named Alvin Toffler, who wrote quite, well, I should say, perhaps he's still alive, so I should say there is an author named Alvin Toffler, and he wrote that every civilization has a hidden code, a set of rules or principles that run through all its activities like a repeated design. And
like the number 9.
So this pattern that I'm referring to, I'll give you some. I formed this little chart, which is Unfortunately, I couldn't get my thumb drive to work today. But it's a little chart here, and it's called a radial category. And you start out with the word domination in the center, and then the spokes radiate out from that. And these are various synonyms from the literature, from papal bulls and other documents. Invade, capture, vanquish, subdue, subjugate, dominion, tame, colonize, paramount, domesticate, conquest, sovereign, civilization, empire, government, reduce, subject, overthrow. And so you might be wondering, well, why would, for example, the word civilization be in there? Everyone seems to look at that as a fairly positive term. But when you go to the Webster's Third International Dictionary and you look up the word, it means it means the act of civilizing, especially the forcing of a particular cultural pattern on a population to whom it is foreign. Well, the forcing is the key word there. And if the pattern that's being forced is a pattern of domination and subordination, then you can say that it's the forcing of a particular cultural pattern of domination on a population or a people or nation to whom it is foreign. And so that clues you in there. In the Papal Bull of 1493, the one from May 4th, there's a sentence in the document that says, "We trust in Him," with a capital H on Him, "from whom empires and governments and all good things proceed." But when you look at the Latin version of the document and you look up the word corresponding in the Latin word corresponding to the word governments in English, it's the word dominationes, meaning dominations. That means that one government is dominación, which is domination. And of course the word empire is also a framework of domination. There's another sentence in the Papal Bull of May 3rd, I think it's May 3rd, 1493, that actually part of it reads, "Sub dominio, actuali, temporali, alicorum, dominorum, Christianorum, constitute non sint." And it means lands not under the domination of any Christian dominator. Dominorum Christianorum means Christian dominator. I had the opportunity to ask the Vatican ambassador not this past session, but the one before that. I didn't know he was the ambassador, but I knew he was with the Holy See. And so I asked him, I said, "You probably know Latin." I said, "What does Dominorum Christianorum mean?" And he said, "Well, it probably means lords, probably master, probably mister. Yes, mister." And I said, "Oh, okay. So in other words, lands not possessed by any Mr. Christian?" And he said, "Well, it's best not to translate it into English because it would not fit." Meaning that if you look at these terms from today's perspective, you see how outrageous they are. The idea that their deity is the source of the domination and empire and so forth that's mentioned in the document. So a little while later, I had gone into the main meeting hall and where the permanent forum was in session, and I was standing just inside the doorway talking quietly to a man I know, and I saw this gentleman from the Holy See enter the room, and I didn't think much of it because their seat is over there and to the left. And before I knew it, he was standing right back in front of me, and he kind of took me by the arm and pulled me out of the room. And when we got outside the door, he was very pleasant. And he said, that term you were talking about, I believe that's talking about Jesus Christ or God. And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, then I have another question for you." And then I quoted the sentence about "we trust in Him." And when I got to that, he said, "That's Jesus Christ or God." And I continued, "From whom empires and dominations and all good things proceed." So if the empires and dominations are coming out of Him, who is Jesus Christ or God, does that mean it's a God of domination?
God of
and
war.
He said, "Well, everything comes from God. The birds and the trees and so forth." And so he didn't really answer the question, but in a sense he kind of did. It's odd. And what I'm pointing out here is that there are these patterns in the language that we have not been cognizant of, and it's only by going back into the Latin versions of some of these documents that we begin to see what's been going on. When we asked the question, as was asked of the Canadian government at the UN Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination not that long ago, paraphrasing, what is the basis of Canada's claim to underlying title to the Indian lands, there was no response. And I think to this day, correct me if I'm wrong, but there still is no response. And what I find strange about that is that they could have taken the book called Creation of Rights of Sovereignty Through Symbolic Acts that was published in 1938 by 3 students of a man named Charles Cheney Hyde, who was the solicitor for the United States Department of State from 1925 to 1928. And that book was published by 3 students from Columbia University. So they were in an international law program taught by 3 of the most eminent international law scholars in the world at that time. And it seems to me that Canada could easily submit that into the record and say that these rituals that were conducted provide the information necessary to know what is the claim of Canada to the underlying title or the title of sovereignty and so forth. But they don't do that. And I believe it's the same type of thing where it would not fit, as the Vatican ambassador, the nuncio, mentioned. In other words, it would be laughed off the world stage. Those things that might have seemed sensible at one time when they were just amongst themselves and their elite clubs of states are no longer going to really hold muster.
It no longer holds muster when they try to tell you their claim to your land when the definition of this land is you. It's not sensible for them to lay claim to it. That's why the indigenous of France sued and got that title, where the indigenous of France are the French, and the French is the indigenous title of that land. And they stole that title like they stole America.
One other thing I want to mention is that, had a few notes here, that when we look at the idea of the international law system, it's important to know what that is. And I somewhat differ from Walter Echo Hawk in this regard. We have to understand that international law is not a panacea, and that it's a context that has a long, long history. And it's a history that is going back to the what's called the family of nations. And in the Webster's New International Dictionary from 1950, the following definition of family of nations was provided. The aggregate of states, originally the Christian nations of Europe, which as a result of their antecedents have inherited a common civilization and are at a similar level of moral and political opinion, and have been recognized by those states as being on that level.
Wow.
And there was another edition which talked similarly, and is said to include the Christian states of Europe and their offshoots in America.
Descendants.
And so forth and so on. Henry Wheaton, who was the Supreme Court reporter at the time that Johnson v. McIntosh was handed down, wrote a volume on international law called The Elements of International Law that was published in 1836. And in the advertising to the first edition, he was talking about the natural law, more properly called the law of God, and so forth. And then he said the old Christian states of Western Europe were the original members of the family of nations, because the law of nations grew up gradually between them through customs and treaties. Whenever afterwards a new Christian state made its appearance in Europe, it was received into the existing society by the old members of the family of nations. It is for this reason that this law was in former times frequently called European law of nations. And so it continues to talk about the Christian states of Europe.
So it's a European law against natural law, or the Creator's law, which is your paleo right there in Los Lunas, New Mexico. 9 commandments.
My point. And it was only after Turkey was admitted in 1856, and Turkey was an Islamic country, that it could no longer be talked about in exclusively Christian terms. There's a wonderful book on international law by Professor Anthony Angie, who is from the island country of Nauru, somewhere close, fairly close, I guess, to Australia, and the island country was devastated by phosphate mining by the Australian and UK governments. And he ended up getting his JD, I should say SJD, actually the highest form of law degree, from Harvard. And he wrote a terrific book on international law that's called Imperialism, Sovereignty, and the Making of International Law. And the foreword was written by a professor named James Crawford, who was a mentor to Professor Angie. And there is an acknowledgement in that foreword of the domination-subordination system. And Crawford wrote of the history of international law and how at different times or different epochs and in different ways, the legal history of the relations between the West and non-Western polities reproduced an underlying pattern of domination and subordination, unquote. Crawford says that Professor Angie's work illustrates, quote, the relations between civilizations and peoples. Moreover, these were relations of domination, and Crawford placed italics on the word domination. So that's pointing to that pattern that I start out my talk focusing on. We see that pattern in the Papal Bull of 1452 called the Dum Diversas. Okay. And the specific language from that document authorizes the King of Portugal to go to the western coast of Africa and to other non-Christian lands and to, quote, invade, capture, vanquish, and subdue all Saracens, pagans, and other enemies of Christ, to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery, and to take away all their possessions and property. And the king is authorized to convert the land, meaning to unlawfully or wrongfully appropriate that which belongs to another. Each and every one of those terms and phrases refers in some way or another to the pattern of domination and subordination. And this is actually the whole framework of what's called international law. And so what are called states are actually states of domination. That's the state is a state of domination. And there's an amazing book called The Sociology of Sociology of Colonies by Professor René Monnier from the University of Paris. It was published in 1949, and I highly recommend you try to obtain a copy. They're not that expensive getting them used. And it illustrates he was actually a professor of colonial sciences, and it shows the way in which domination is key to the whole colonization process. So one of the things I want to mention here today with regard to the claims of Canada and the United States to our traditional lands and territories is that there's something called the extinguishment process, which is the analogy or the metaphor for what's called extinguishment. What do you think of that is sometimes referred to as extinguished? There's really only one thing I can think of. Anybody? What do you extinguish? Fire? Right? You extinguish fire. Fire extinguisher. And what they're referring to are the council fires. The council fires of our peoples. And so when they can put out the last ember of the council fire and the people have had to completely leave and they're gone, there's no more council fires, they've extinguished the title. That's the metaphor. And in fact, one of the recent U.S. Supreme Court decisions referred to, it was one of the recent, 2005, the Supreme Court used the Doctrine of Discovery in a case called City of Sherrill versus Oneida Indian Nation of New York. And it had to do with whether or not the Oneida Indian Nation, after having purchased some of its traditional lands,
Just right quick, I just pulled this document up, when he's dealing with, the actual, extinguishing the fire. And it reminded me of a quote. Now, we're just talking 1800s. All right, we're just talking 1800s. All right, we're just talking 1828, Webster Dictionary, 1800s, 1828. This here is 1832. So they're going off the definition of an American right here. They know what an American is. They know who an American is. And they know what the emblem of America is. And based on that framework, this is out the Virginia House of Delegates, Henry Brown. This is a quote. "We have, as far as possible, closed every avenue by which light may enter the slave's mind." Who's the slaves? Who's been put in perpetual slavery based on this dumb Diversas document? Who's the slave? Who's the Saracen? All right. So they're talking about you, copper color race. They're talking about the Negro. They're talking about the Hebrew that they brought the Hebrew interpreter to speak to. The Hebrew who is speaking Hebrew and Picto-Hebrew already here. "We have, as far as possible, closed every avenue by which light may enter the Hebrew's mind, the Negro's mind, the Hebo's mind, the American's mind." They extinguished the light from the American's mind. If we could extinguish, what do you extinguish? Fire, right? That led me to this. All praise Allah. If we could extinguish the capacity to see the light, our work would be complete. So we have, as far as possible, closed every avenue. We have, as far as possible, closed every avenue. Meditate on this with due meditation, because they meditated on you, so-called Negro, with due meditation. The least you can do is meditate on this. In the 1800s, when this is the emblem of America, we have, as far as possible, closed every avenue by which light may enter the Negro's mind, the copper color's mind. If we could extinguish their capacity to see the light. Damn, how do you do that? How do you extinguish the fire? The everlasting fire. Oh, they're wishing on a star. They're wishing on a Ra star. On a Rasta. Because they're trying to extinguish your fire, Negro. They said, man, if we could, not that we can, but if we could extinguish their capacity to see the light, meaning that they're going to flip you upside down, tell you spinning, tell you from Africa, take away your education, take away your priests, kill your parents, put you on a boat from Florida to Mississippi and tell you come from Africa. That's what they were doing. You coming from Mississippi to Florida on a boat, or from the Caribbean, and they're telling you, they're starting to perpetuate, they're starting to extinguish your capacity to see the light, to connect to the Creator, because they're bringing you a what? Christ. Their God of war is what they're using to extinguish your capacity to connect to the Creator above the barrier. Our work would be complete. We would have severed them from their Creator and taken everything. And the emblem of America would now fall in the hands of the descendants of Europeans born here. So we would extinguish their capacity to see the light. Our work would be complete. They, not enslaved Africans, they put that in parentheses because it's not true. They, the American, the copper color race, the Negro, the tribes, the Negro tribes, the copper tribes found here. They, the Americans, would then be on the level with the beast of the field. If we can if we can sever them from their Creator, from their Hawa, from their secure breath, they would then be on the level with the beast of the field. And that's where you are right now, so-called Negro. You are on the level of the beast. Look at you. Look at you. You have no land. You have no kingdom. Remember, they were given permission to invade, search out, capture, vanquish, and subdue all you Negroes. So they took away your what? Your kingdom, dukedom, principalities, that's your energy, your dominions, all of your dominions. I mean, you know what that means, right? All the areas you were dominating, they took. All of your possessions, they took. Movable and immovable, man. And possessed them. And reduced you to perpetual, forever slavery. Slave. We have, as far as possible, closed every avenue by which light might enter the slave's mind. Negro, you're now a slave. You've been invaded on your own land. If we could extinguish the capacity to see the light, our work would be complete. Is it complete? They, the copper color American, would then be on the level of the beast, because once you get severed from your creator, you're a beast. You're immortal. A beast of the field. And we would be safe. Aha! So it's all about your safety. You invade because you're scared. You invade because you're afraid of the dominion. The dominion of the Negro. Henry Brown, Virginia House of Delegates, 1832. Let's get a little bit more of this.
Territory on the real estate market had sovereignty that ran with the land just by virtue of having possession of that land. And the Supreme Court used a metaphor that was something along the lines of the embers having long grown cold in the council fire of the Oneida people. And in other words, it was a one-way street. Once the land left the possession of the Oneida Nation, that was it. It could never come back and have sovereignty run with the land unless that land was put into federal trust. So it had to have the imprimatur of the federal government. And but anyway, that just kind of tells you. So what this has to do with in terms of extinguishment. And that's why I believe that it's so critically important that we acknowledge our own standards. When we looked at or thought about the planting of flags, the royal flags, which are called royal standards, what's really being talked about there? It's a double meaning, a double entendre. And so when they say they planted their royal standards, they're talking about their royal standards of judgment, meaning that they have the supposed right to come to someone else's territory from a great distance and now set up themselves as the judge of the peoples already existing there. And
they're judging your Negro copper-colored land with their Admiralty Sea Law and their foreign vessels parked in dry dock. You walk in the courthouse, you're walking into a boat. It is a foreign vessel in dry dock that's giving dockets and documents. It's in water. It's still in water. You're in land. You're on land. And they're saying with their royal standards, they can judge your ass, even if they're just bringing water law, because that's all they can claim, since they can't truly and lawfully claim the Creator's land.
so where do they get off doing that? Well, it has to do with the whole domination subordination framework. So there's a tendency to say that, well, they require this and they require that, and they're going to be the ones to judge what is wandering in Rome. All these kinds of judgments that are built into the record are ways in which they're actually following up on their original planting of those royal standards in the soil. The problem is that there hasn't been a sufficiently powerful response on our part to challenge that and contest it. And the thing that I'm getting at here is that we have thousands of years of original free and independent existence, and by virtue of that, their claims of domination and subordination will never become rightful, will never become legitimate, and will never become acceptable so long as we continue to challenge and refute that. And the only thing that we need in order to continue that position is a spiritual connectedness with our traditional lands and territories, and not forgetting who we are at our root.
How you die.
So these are some of the things I want to talk about today, but I also want to mention that it seems to me that there's been a fair amount of conditioning, that there's been a programming that we've all been subjected to. And a big part of that programming and that subjecting us, dominating us, has been conducted through the residential schools, through the boarding schools. Nobody in this room is a stranger to that information, personally and otherwise. And my grandfather and great-grandfather both went to Haskell boarding school, and my grandpa ran away at the age of 15. He had been in there since, well, I guess off and on since he was 4 or 5. And when he ran away, they put AWOL on his file. He went AWOL by running off, and because it was a military academy. So you can't go through a military academy conditioning without having a type of programming conducted on your psyche. And so it's important for us to make sure, this is my view, that we are still resisting the policies and agenda of assimilation on the part of the dominating systems. And the whole reconciliation process is nothing but that. Them talking about reconciling an original existence with their assumed sovereignty of the crown is a way of saying that, well, we need to quell the rebelliousness of these people who keep insisting that they have a right of self-determination and so forth. So we'll talk in terms of reconciliation. That term comes right out of the Inquisition. And it was the idea that a heretic could renounce his or her errors and be brought into the bosom of the church. And so if you look up the dictionary definition, it means to bring back into submission. There's that domination terminology again, or to bring back into the church. And so there are so many of these terms that people take for granted and don't look at them closely and realize where the traps are. The 19th and 20th century policymakers were talking about assimilating our peoples into their dominating society, and it's imperative that we continue to resist that and not lose sight of the fact that we have an original free and independent existence which delegitimizes their claims of a right of domination, and that we have the right to a continued existence, and will forever have that right, spiritually, culturally, and otherwise. What they did in the boarding schools and through other policies of genocide, one of the things that they did was engage in what I call linguicide, the intentional killing of our languages, or the intentional effort to kill our languages. And elders that I spoke with from different reservations, some of the various things that they described to me personally were having their tongues put on dry ice, just as small children, the top layer of skin being peeled off their tongues, made to kneel on broken tile with bare knees, and so that their knees bled, strapped. This is a whole litany of horrendous things that we all know about, and much worse than that.
And you know what I'm saying? No one can deny that, when proxies get set up, they get used. You know what I'm saying? When this happened, we'll make our dismount right about here, man. Love to her and P, man, for dropping this on us. Go drop the rest of it. A lot of people, get, caught in these tragic, catch-ups, man. The same thing as the Holocaust and the situation with, so-called Jews. And that, we know that Hitler is an Ashkenazi, Nazi, Ashkenazi. So with the Ashkenazi, it was an Ashkenazi on Ashkenazi affair. It was a Rockefeller affair. It was go set up this 1947 state of Israel. Go set up this proxy in Israel. The ones that stay behind because they know better, that they know that the Creator is supposed to, according to the script, lead them on their promised land. So they're not supposed to go set up their own state to get there. They knew better, but they still had to catch the wrath of Hitler. Or they moved and set up shop over there now, and, you know, it is what it is. Now we finding out the drop, man. So, you know, a lot of people went through devastating things, but they're not you. They didn't go through your devastation. You know, it's not comparing apples to oranges, but when you're dealing with the emblem, you're dealing with the emblem. When you're dealing with the genocide, this is what you're talking about. Even if they don't bring you up, you have to recon it and know that even when they flipped it on you, you still are here, not the proxy. And everyone else got, you know what I'm saying, the ricochet. And, you know, just to dismount on this proxy. Let's make sure we can get this, man. Let's make sure we can get it. I know it's a lot of words, man. Yeah, man, we're just talking the, how you say it? The La Malinche. The woman depicted is obviously not an Aztec woman, but in that it depicts a woman of Mongol extraction, it more likely reflects La Malinche's true identity. Now, this is a painting. This is Jose. Make sure you can get it. All right, here we go. I'm going to keep going on. I want you to be able to read this. This is Jose Clemente Orozco's famous piece of public art in the fresco Cortez and Malinche. So this is Cortez. And this is his piece. Now, she's not the American copper color, right? She's what they're calling Mongol, you know what I mean? There's different interpretations of that. But she's already a mixture. She's connected to the same, you know, proxy who's saying that his people went through whatever. Yeah. Now, what happened when this is going down? What mixture already happened? What situations happening with the cons? What situations already happening here? So you have this mixture. And we know they were bringing them over here as well. This is Jose Clemente's work. Now, this is Cortez and Malinche are starkly nude, sitting over the figure of a prostate, perhaps degenerate Mexico. So this looks like a Negro, like they're just standing over a Negro. Mexico, the product of miscegenation, the mixing of races. So miscegenation. So this is the product of the mixing. With his arms across her, it is not clear whether Cortez is restraining her or protecting her. It is clear that Malinche is being portrayed here as the mother of modern Mexico. It is unclear if the artist believes this is good or bad. So this is portrayed as the mother of modern Mexico because the seed of this type of connection is what now is the proxy of even when you say Mexico. And we're just getting the drop, you know what I'm saying? This is not in the search of finding who we are, in the search of what it is, you know what I'm saying? You have to connect it all. And you can't be, you know, afraid to connect it all. I mean, so we know we're from here. We know that Meshi is Moses and Moses is Meshi and that we are these tribes here. The copper color race is here. And here's their, you know what I'm saying, photographic painting, you know, evidence of what they're calling the mother of the modern Mexican, meaning the Spaniard and this particular Mongol connection is forming what you are referring to as a new or a modern Meshi. All right. When you already know that you're indigenous Meshi, your indigenous South America is right here. So this La Malinche. All right, so La Malinche, slave, interpreter, secretary, mistress, and mother of the first Mexican, quote unquote, because that's not the actual Meshi Khan. That's not the actual Khan. This is already a mixture, a mixture, and a Spaniard. Now you have a proxy. Now you have a proxy giving proxy stories, a mixture who's proxying you. It's only important because we had to remove the proxy to see. And once we see, we awaken, and our land awakens with us. Our land awakens with the emblem of America. And that's just the truth. That's just the drop. That's just the purified substance. When they removed all the light from your eyes, so-called Negro, they're calling you a slave. But this is the mother of the modern proxy, labeling her a traitor. Now listen, La Minche. Her very name still stirs up controversy. Many Mexicans continue to revile the woman called Dona Marina by the Spaniards and La Malinche by the Aztecs, labeling her a traitor and harlot for her role as the alter ego of Hernando Cortez. So she apparently, was rocking with Cortez and not with them. And he conquered Mexico. As he conquered Mexico, her ability to communicate also enabled the Spaniards to introduce Christianity. So, she helped, be that particular filter for them to introduce their Jesus. Herself a convert, baptized Marina, she was an eloquent advocate for her new faith. All historians agree that she was the daughter of a noble Aztec family. Well, then, they got to make up their mind. What story? Either you're talking about a Mongol Negro or a so-called mongrel, already, mixture, and now you got a mixture with a Spaniard and whatever the case is, but she's being, labeled as the mother of what they're calling the mother of the first quote-unquote Mexican, even though here they say she was the daughter of a noble Aztec family. Upon the death of her father, a chief, her mother remarried and gave birth to a son, deciding that the son, rather than Marina, should inherit. The mother turned her young daughter over to some passing traders and thereafter proclaimed her dead. Eventually, the girl wound up as a slave of the cacique, the military chief of Tabasco. By the time Cortez arrived, she had learned that the Maya dialect used in the Yucatan, while still understanding Nahuatl, y'all get it, Nahuatl, the language of the Aztecs and most non-Mayan Indians. The La Malinche was offered to Cortez as a slave by the cacique of Tabasco, along with 19 other young women. Until then, Cortez had relied on Spanish priest Geronimo de Aguilar as his interpreter. Aguilar had been shipwrecked off of Cozumel. While waiting for rescue, he had learned the Mayan language, but when the expedition left the Mayan-speaking area, Cortez discovered that he could not communicate with the Indians. That night, he was advised that one of the women given to him in Tabasco spoke so-called Mexican. All right, then she started to translate for him. So I'll drop this link. You can get all that, man, but we're just having a drop here, discussing the drop, man. We're just talking Inca. Man, we're just talking. Look at these melanated brothers on the horse. Look at the melanated brothers on the horse. In 1500s, look at the melanated royalty. So you have to get a pure depiction of what we're talking about. Michelangelo della Vici, 1475. What is the real his story? Wow. Hanging of a slave by a hook in his ribs in 1773. Wow. Is this the war against the Saracen? Is this the war against you? When we activate, when we meditate, we return. We return. Oh, yeah. When we meditate, we return, man. We return, man. Man, we wake up. Man, we talking freedom, man. I'm talking freedom pies. We talking freedom enchiladas. We talking the California Indians. We talking afros. We're talking redemption. We're talking redemption season. Stay up, suit up, choose up. Make your next vibration your best vibration. Thank y'all for vibrating with me. We were just talking the doctrine of their discovery, but your doctrine is the real. You're not indoctrinated. You are the reality. You are the true. You are the true emblem of America. Hawa.